important to keep in mind that sometimes it can take more than a day for the money to transfer into or out of your account. You want to make sure that you have enough money in your account to cover any purchases made. Checks are a paper-based form of payment that is essentially a promise to pay the stated amount. Checks must be presented at the bank to receive payment, and it can take up to 3 business days for a check to clear or a payment to be received. Personal checks are different than check cashing centers. Check cashing centers may seem like a convenience, but it can come at an expensive price. Cashing a check from one of these centers can come with several fees. Credit card. A credit card is a line of credit that can be used to borrow money to make purchases. The money does not come from your personal account. You're borrowing it and will have to pay it back. The credit card company sends monthly statements that tells the outstanding balance on the card. The outstanding balance must be met, or interest, a percentage of the outstanding balance, will be added to the amount owed. Your credit limit is the largest amount that a credit card company will let you spend. For example, if your credit limit is $5,000, you may not spend more than $5,000 without being charged over the limit fees. With revolving credit, like the kind being offered by credit card companies, every month you automatically get a loan for the amount of your credit limit, whether or not you need it or use it. I want to shop around for a credit card. Where do I begin? Your local banks and credit unions are a good place to begin shopping for a credit card. You want to look for cards with low interest rates for credit card balances, no annual fees to use the card, and low fees for transferring credit balances. Beware of teaser rates. There are many credit card companies out there, and they all want your business. Offering an introductory or teaser rate for charges on unpaid balances is one way credit card companies try to get your business. While teaser rates might appear very appealing and well below rates other credit cards offer, teaser rates are good only for a certain period of time, like 6 or 9 months. After the introductory period ends, you will be charged the credit card company's normal rate on unpaid balances. In some cases, that normal rate may be in line with what other companies charge. In other cases, it may be a lot higher. If you are interested in a credit card offering a teaser rate, be sure you know what rate you will be charged on unpaid balances after the introductory period ends. Transferring credit card balances, what you need to know. If you have a credit card and want to transfer balances to a lower rate or lower cost card, make sure you know the fees charged to transfer the funds, usually 3 to 4% of the balance. That amount will be added to your existing balance. The transfer rules. When does the advertised rate or teaser rate end? What could trigger the teaser rate to end earlier than advertised, such as a late payment? Usually the teaser rate applies only to transfer balances, not on existing balances or balances for new purchases. Often the rate for new purchases is higher than the teaser rate. Fees associated with credit cards. Using credit comes with a price, and in different forms. It literally pays to know what to look for when shopping around for a credit card. If you're unable to determine exactly what type of fee might be charged from the credit card company's brochure or website, call the credit card company and speak with a representative.
All right, fantastic. All right, welcome everyone. So tonight we may have a little smaller crowd, which is okay. But we'll go ahead and proceed as if we're talking to 2 million people and make it just as important. So the good thing about smaller numbers is if you have questions, we have time to answer them. And I will encourage you to ask questions because the material tonight is a little bit shorter than usual. And so if it's If we don't have questions, I'm going to bring my kids in here and let them start dancing and telling jokes. And I promise you, you do not want that because you could be there all night. So outside of that, just kind of recapping. Okay. Last week, we talked about spending leaks and how at times money just kind of slips through our fingers and we don't realize it. And just kind of talk through some practical ways to make sure we get to be just a little bit better ownership of where our money's going, and especially so that we can achieve the goals that we have for the money that we're making. So hopefully we had time to do that and was able to put that and is applicable for everyone. So this week, just talking a little bit about different ways to accumulate, basically pay things off as we accumulate debt, or as we just go through a monthly billing cycle of going, hey, how's the best way to stay within the budget that we built? So we don't have any handouts tonight, so it's a little bit easier as far as not referencing certain things in the book, but I will, and you don't have to turn to it, but in the book at the front, I love quotes. My kids, they get a quote from me about every day in a text. And the one I really liked, it said the difference between winning and losing is most often not quitting. And everyone on this call has had times in their life where you felt like quitting, and to come out on the other side of that is well worth it. So that's kind of, even in the topics we're talking about each week, is it is a slow process as far as our finances go sometimes. But the main thing is we just keep every month trying to move forward in achieving goals that we kind of set before ourselves. So to start with, does anybody have any questions?
I do.
Okay, shoot.
Okay. We might cover this. I don't know. But as far as having I heard somebody say, it was like on a TED Talk or something, but he recommended, instead of using like a checking or savings account through a bank, he recommended doing everything through credit. And just, I don't know where he kept his money though. That was the part that I missed. But basically keeping it safe that way, and that way he was paying it off, as soon as he spent anything on his credit card. And if there was anything, if his card was stolen, he had zero liability for anything, actually being stolen. He could immediately lock his cards or whatever. Is that sound legitimate to you? Or because I had never heard of that before, and I don't know where he would have been like saving the money in order to pay off the credit card.
Right.
But it was intriguing to me because I thought you are increasing your credit or improving your credit, and you are at no risk for somebody compromising your money, because the credit card company is the one liable for the money that they're lending you. So I was just curious about that, if that was something that you had heard of or recommended or didn't recommend.
Right. So funny enough, we all, this day and age especially, hear a lot of people's opinions for conspiracy theories. So a lot of times, and I'm not saying that's what that was, but you hear that a lot around those type of talks. And it's mainly just trying to keep their money out of financial institutions that they don't trust in handling it, or a fear of, hey, I can't get to it if things get really bad in the economy, or go to a one world currency, or Bitcoin. I mean, so I'm just throwing that out there because you hear a lot of people say things. Here's what I do. Here's what 99% of my clients that are extremely high net worth do, is they have a local bank that they deal with. So credit union, I don't care. I'm not promoting anybody, but I use Home Federal for money that I need to get my hands on today. So through an ATM or making a deposit. My broker dealers are Ameriprise, so I have a bulk of my money in different accounts there that I can invest. So I can have two going there. And then here's what I do, to your point, is I have everything deposited into Home Federal, and then I get to disperse the funds as I want. But I use a credit card for almost everything because I know I'm going to pay it off monthly. I think I've mentioned this before. My wife's family's in Idaho. So we use those points to buy plane tickets for a family of 6 to hopefully get to see them every year, which doesn't always work out that way. But the thing about credit cards, for no matter who you are, I consider myself a very disciplined person.
Yeah.
I can handle that.
Yeah.
Some people, though, even when they're used to doing it, and then they have a month where, oh, there's an emergency and I can't pay it all off. That's when you start finding yourself getting in trouble. So you've got to, I would say, if you're going to do that on the credit card, also have a cash reserve of X, whatever you're used to spending, and maybe about a 2 to 3 month window there that you can take care of that. If you did have an emergency, you're not paying the credit card 20% that month because you couldn't pay it all off, if that makes sense. But taking your money out every month and burying it in your backyard, I will argue, is not near as safe as having it in a local credit union. But again, I am so anal about daily. At the least, the longest period I'll go is a week without logging into my account and making sure it's to the penny. So I think we have to be good stewards with our money and also be very diligent to go, hey, let's make sure that it's exactly what I thought it would be. And when I budget, it's budgeted to the penny, which is funny. My sister, I love her. She's got other strengths, but she'll be like, it's within $100. It's close enough. And I'm like, no, it's got to be to the penny. But that's just how my brain works. So that's where I would tell you there's no definitive yes or no, but I definitely do think there's a reason to have it in a financial institution. And I don't worry personally about it's not going to be there if you ever need to get to it. Thank you for the question. Anybody else? Okay, so kind of adding to that, I will say this about checking accounts. There is absolutely no reason, period, that anybody should be paying for their checking account. So if your bank charges you a $20 a year fee to have a checking account, move banks or make them do away with it. This day and age, there's too many out there that competitors that you can go, okay, well, I'm going to go here. And there's no reason to, I know it's $20, but $20 is $20 times 10 years times 20. At the end of the day, the bank is keeping your money that they shouldn't be. So don't settle for paying for about anything in a financial world, especially with a bank that's not, something extra. So just a regular checking and savings account. And even if you're doing that for your kids one day, you've got your checking and savings and you're going to open up an extra one for them, you should not be paying any additional fee to have that option. So make sure you keep up with that as well. And again, if you have any questions, don't hesitate. I will also take that towards credit cards as we get into that conversation. There's too many options to be paying for a credit card or an annual fee of $75 to sometimes $150 just to use a credit card. I'm sorry, but that's my money. It's not yours to tell me that I can use your card as a gift from you for $100. So there's too many other ones. Capital One, I think, is one of the best ones out there, just because they have so much in rewards. Plus, I've not seen many that charge any type of fees to use that card. ATMs, we've talked about that. And I'll be honest, I am guilty about twice a year going and using an ATM at Waggles because I literally have to have cash within the next 10 minutes to get my kids to something. And I do not have time to go to the bank. So I'll pay a stupid $3.50 fee to actually access some of my money or use a different bank to do that. Try not to do that. I know it happens. I'll be transparent to everybody to let you know we don't live in a perfect world. So there's times we just have to do what we have to do. But I have talked to people that make that a weekly habit, and man, they're making money hand over fist in these silly fees. So don't be a part of it if you can. So try your best not to add an additional fee just because you haven't planned ahead. I'm guilty of that, just like anybody else can be, but don't make it a habit, please. Questions on that?
Hey, Lee,
Yes.
I have a question about credit card versus debit card. I always use my debit card to, do purchases or whatever, like especially like at the grocery store or things like that. And someone was telling me that that's not a smart idea, that you should try to get a credit card to do those kinds of purchases and then pay that off every month if you can, and not use your debit card. So what's your thoughts on that?
What was their argument to that? Just so I know what they told you.
Because you're opening yourself up vulnerability to someone hacking into you, like your checking and savings account with your debit card. Whereas a
That's the
credit
number
card
one
would
reason.
be a whole separate thing. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the number one reason, Robin, is literally for whatever. I don't understand that. I don't understand how we're all doing this, right? I'm not a tech guy. So I can't tell you exactly why, but definitely those that are trying to steal identities or access our accounts, debit cards are much easier to do that. So for that reason, I put everything on a credit card and we rarely use our debit card. And the only time I use a debit card, to be honest with you, is to do an ATM.
Okay.
So one of my partners actually banks at Home Federal, and his identity on his debit card was stolen 3 different times.
Well, my husband's is the same. He gets tagged a lot because he uses for little places, like that where, and that's why the bank was like you. So what's your recommendation when you're looking for a credit card? What should you look for? You were saying to make sure it has no annual fee, but is there anything else that you would look for to try to get a credit card?
Yeah, for me, it's maximizing points, right? Because we use those quite a bit. So I get nothing out of any product I may promote other than I think it's the best, or I wouldn't use it. But I do like Capital One cards. They have a lot of options. There are no annual fees. You can accumulate a lot of points very quickly. And they even have, on a monthly basis, they have promotions where if you use it for gas, you may get triple the points or things like that. Again, if I had something scrolling across the screen, a warning, it would be saying, make sure you pay it off on a monthly basis, because their annual rates or monthly rates or annual rates, like APR, is in the 20s. So they're not cheap compared to everybody else. They're right in line with everybody else. But if you pay it off monthly, it doesn't matter. And that's the other side about them, is they have there's no penalties for you to pay it off on a monthly basis. So I'm going to assume that answered your question, Robin, because I don't see you anymore, and I'm hoping that doesn't mean you wrecked. So I hope Robin's good. I will say this. I used to have an American Express card, and they charged annual fees, and it didn't, there was no value being added by me having an American Express other than some international stuff, but it wasn't worth it. So I canceled it and went to Capital One. All right, good questions.
Thank you. I was going through the drive-through, so I had to mute.
Oh, no worries. I just give you a hard time.
Thank you for your answer. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. So I think I mentioned this before, is when I started my business, I actually used a loan to start it. And I carried that loan to get forward for about 3 years. But what I did is I just kept rolling it over about every 6 to 12 months to a new credit card that offered 0% on balance transfers. And yes, I got hit with probably an extra $600 on that loan over those 3 years doing that. but I was able to pay off my credit card debt in that manner at a 0% interest. So that's another question I get a lot about credit cards is how can they be used to help you in balance transfer, or if I carry credit card debt that I'm trying to pay off quickly, look for those opportunities where they give 0% for a 6 to 12 month window. And you have to be very diligent though, to go, I'm going to pay this off over a set date. And when the 6 months is coming up, about month number 5, I'm starting to look for a new card to roll that over into that it's at 0%. So it is a little bit time consuming, not horrible. You just have to focus on it. And that's an easy way to use credit cards really to your advantage. And the biggest thing, once you roll it from one credit card to another, call in and cancel the credit card you just rolled the transfer from. They'll try to talk you out of it, but just know what you're doing, and that's not a part of your game plan. And so let them know, no, I want you to go ahead and cancel that. So under no contract can they not cancel that for you. So that was the only other thing when I was looking at credit cards. It's a very good way to use that game to your benefit if you have some credit card debt that you need to take care of. Just looking to see. I think that covers that. And that's the biggest thing on credit, guys, is just know what you're dealing with. They're not going to let you borrow money without charging you a fee and an interest rate. And so a lot of times you'll get a teaser fee. And if you use that period, if you don't have a game plan to pay it off during that time, it can catch up with you. Because let me tell you something, paying 20% interest monthly, it's really hard to get ahead of that. Okay. You've got to have some really good discretionary income to not just barely pay the minimums. And so that's the world we live in, is credit card companies really come out big on people that are just paying the minimums, because at the end of the day, they got you on the hook doing that for a long period of time, because you're really not ever hitting the principal. So just remember that if you use them at a teaser rate, you better have a game plan to have that paid off by the time you get to that 20+% situation.
We had a question on the chat. Should you always cancel a credit card when you don't use it regularly?
I do. I don't like things floating around out there. Again, that gives predators one less avenue to get into your identity, which then creates a major problem. So if you know for sure there's absolutely no value that can bring, or you're just not using it anymore, go ahead and cancel it, be done with it. It doesn't hurt your credit to do it. If anything, it could hurt it to keep it open.
Hey, Lee,
Yes, ma'am.
is this also true that your line of credit it counts as debt? So like, even if you have, say you have a $5,000 line of credit on a credit card, that counts like you could have a $5,000 debt. So like when you're going to apply for something, that line of credit would count against you, in that you could potentially have this much debt. Am I
No.
asking that correctly?
Early in our lives, maybe, because we don't have a history of paying off a lot of debt. So they could, a bank or whatever, if you're trying to get a loan, they could say, oh no, they could have an additional 5 to 10, because there hasn't been a history of, I'm 47. So when you get as old as me now, I have a history of I paid off debt, and that'll never work against you, because it's, it's kind of like walking in, you got $5,000 in your account, and you're trying to convince them to give you enough money because you will have 10. I mean, on that end, they're going to look at you like you have 14 heads. Well, how can they use a line of credit that you're not using against you, and you got a history of paying off your debts? So no, to me, that's an absolute lie. I'll double check that I'm not wrong there, but I've never heard or experienced that before where they'll actually use that against you.
I had another question. If you have like normal debt, like cell phone, like balance from paying off like an expensive cell phone or a car payment, or do you recommend if you end up like having that amount to like pay all of it off at one time, is it better to pay it off all at once if you can, or is it better to pay and get it off of your monthly like expenses, or is it better to pay the smaller amount monthly and keep that in your savings longer?
I'll answer it this way. So if you need an emergency fund of 3,000 and you've got to use 3,000 to pay all that off, and that zeroes out your emergency fund, don't do that. Okay. Use your cash flow to pay it off and keep building up your emergency fund. And then if that totals $2,000 and you've had 2 years to build it, whatever it takes you, then pay it all off. So I'm a big fan though, have that emergency fund there and don't deplete it just to pay off something you can do over cash flow for a period of time. And then also don't keep adding to it so that you got more bills as soon as you paid them off, right? Yeah, I think the biggest issue we see in America is if you make more, spend more, right? And I've met a lot of people that on paper are extremely wealthy as far as what they bring in. But when you look at their net worth, they don't have a whole lot to their name because they're so far in debt. So just because we make more, it doesn't mean you spend more. It just means you use that time period to hopefully better yourself for maybe a rainy day or what may be coming next. Not to live in fear. It just means, man, take advantage of the opportunities when you get them. And I don't have a problem with people if they have a bigger family, they get a bigger house. But again, just live within your means. And as income increases, you can still live here and that increases. And I promise you, you'll build net worth really, really quick by just staying at a certain level and using that extra cash flow to do other things for yourself.
There was another question in the chat. Would you be able to apply for that same card that you canceled when you need to use it again after you cancel it? For example, roughly once a year, I will stock up on clearance clothing for my 3 kids in the next size up for the next year and use the store credit card to get extra discounts, then pay that off as quickly as possible so I could cancel it so it's not just sitting there open, then the next year reapply.
Yeah, so unless a credit card specifically says you have to wait a 12-month period, which I've never seen. Now, I'm not a specialist with credit cards, but just like I said, be doing this for 23 years, I've seen a lot. I've never seen a situation where they're not going to let you reopen that credit card. So I would tell you, Kohl's. Yeah, I've done that to Kohl's probably 3 or 4 times, just because the same situation that you described there, Brittany, is literally, I've never had them go, sorry, you canceled this after paying off 6 months ago. We're going to charge you $100 to reapply. I don't think that's legal. I'm sure there's somewhere out there that it is, so I'm probably wrong, but they're going to be more than happy to take and have you reapply. And the other side is, you got to understand, most clerks get a bonus based off of how many new credit cards they open. So they're going to be more than happy to help you reapply. So I think the easy answer is no, there's no issue with doing that. I've been wrong before, so always just check the fine print to make sure that it's not something that is against what I'm telling you. Thank you for your question. Yeah, I think in your material, which I thought was good, there's three bullet points that says, hey, just always keep keep an eye on these when you're talking credit cards. And it's what we just talked about, fees for transferring funds over, what the transfer rules are as far as the teaser rate and how long that window goes. And then also understand that the teaser rate normally, and this is true across the board, is not for new purchases. It's usually just for the balance transfer. So when I was paying off my business debt, I never used that credit card for new purchases. Okay. So you got to be very disciplined and diligent to go, okay, that's strictly just to pay that card off or that debt off. And then if you had new purchases, you can use Capital One or whatever, which actually helps you accumulate points. So again, it's not rocket science, or I couldn't do it. Okay. So it's just taking a little bit of time at night instead of watching, I hate NBA, but I'll use that as an example because it's on right now. I don't like it because I don't think it's good basketball, but that's me. If I'm sitting there watching that, I could take 30 minutes and figure out this and have a game plan in place, right? Even watching it, it's just being diligent enough to go, hey, this is important to me, and I'm going to make sure I get it done. And once it's done, you can move on. And it's kind of like Dave Ramsey said, what is it to give up 6 months to a year or 2 years of your life being uncomfortable financially to achieve the next 20, 30 years of kind of what your goals and what you want your financial life to look like. So we all have to be inconvenienced at time to take ownership of what we're trying to accomplish. I'll say this because it's a pain. I've got a 16-year-old son now, and I had to research what is the best option to help him start building credit and to have a debit card and how we're going to monitor that and tie it into our account. I mean, and I can go down these, start chasing rabbits, right? Because I'm pretty anal when it comes to this stuff. So it took me about a week or two to come up with my game plan, but I feel like we got a pretty good one for him. So everybody's got their hot buttons, and it wasn't fun. I mean, I'm talking to some people that I'm like, you really don't know what you're doing. But we finally got down to what we wanted to do with this situation, and now we're there. So again, I go through the same stuff, even though I'm in this industry. There's a lot of things I don't do, and you just have to kind of figure out what is the best situation for your situation or your kids or whatever. Any more questions?
Me?
Maria?
Yes, I have a question. I usually at the present now, I just having like for the stores that I really like to buy, like for example, dealers or Macy's and another 2 or 3 stores. I had the credit cards for that store. In your opinion, what is the best things? My husband, he said, just when you use our regular credit card instead of paying, and I just have it because I like to use, when I buy these things, I know how much I spend, for this purpose in dealers, for example, right? Whatever it is in these things. Then what is your opinion about that?
Okay.
Is this a bad habit that I have? Or
Yes, Maria, we're going to get you a counseling group from this. Okay. I'll call you. No, I'm kidding. We went and saw a Brooks and Dunn concert recently, and they sing My Maria. So because that's new, every time I see you, I'm going to go, I want to sing that to you. I'm just being honest. So here's my opinion. I think everybody needs 2 credit cards. Why? I have a Capital One, which is a Visa, and then also have a MasterCard. Just so happens that my second one is a MasterCard through Bass Pro Shops. Why is that? Because we love to fish in our household. So something me and my sons, we do together. It's a neat time with them. So the only other time I would use a credit card to purchase is from there. Because when I ran the numbers, I get more of a benefit using that than I do for my Capital One accumulating points. So I can actually use my Bass Pro Shop card to help pay for purchases at Bass Pro Shop. So that's why I do that. So it's not bad what you're doing. Just make sure though that your Macy's card is giving you a benefit that your main credit card isn't.
Okay.
And if it's not, just
Yeah.
use your main credit card.
Yeah. Great. Thank you.
No, absolutely. Yeah, Dick's Sporting Goods is another one. I keep that credit card open. I don't use it, but because you get a
And the score points.
yes, yeah, whatever they've convinced us we're getting some. So every now and then they give me they give me $10 back, and I'm like, okay, it must be great. So
Yeah.
that's the only other one I'll use.
When you have
Because,
kids, I use that a lot for my kid when he was
Yep.
for the sport, and that's good.
yeah, we've got a small school at our house with 4 kids, so it comes in handy, or they've at least convinced me that it's worth doing. So that's the only other one we use.
Okay. Thank you.
Absolutely. Anything else? Well, I think that's it. Unless somebody else has another question, but I will say, I think the biggest thing is, and what we're talking about in anything finances, okay, but especially when you're talking debt, and we'll get into that more next month, is know what you're getting into before you get into it. That doesn't matter if it's a home loan, car loan, credit card debt, because there are different hidden stuff within there. And I'll be honest with you, the more debt you have, the more they're going to try to take advantage of you, because they see there's a habit there. Okay. So if anybody's struggling with that, or people struggling with it, there has to be an end point to go, okay, I'm done accumulating. And this is a true story. I had a husband and wife come in, we go to church with, and the wife was very good at managing money. The husband was horrible. I mean, he would just use credit card debt, and they're on the verge of getting a divorce in my office, and I'm trying to help them through. It's comical because that's not my specialty. And finally, at the end of the day, we worked out a game plan to hold him highly accountable and really just shred up his credit cards. And he had to basically come to his wife and get the money on a monthly basis. And so there are times we have to do extreme stuff if, in his case, if his marriage was worth fighting for, not just the finances. And fortunately, they had enough discretionary income, they were going to be able to get out of debt. But at times, to get past, I'll say we've all probably had stupid financial decisions. To get past those moments, we've got to be committed to do what it takes outside of robbing a bank to get that situation taken care of. So again, I always say the fact that anybody's on this call is a major step, but the best thing to help us debt wise is to get to the ending point of going, I'm tired of this. It's a revolving problem. It must stop. And to get to financial freedom, there's got to be that moment of truth. So and then there's others where you just get hit with a few emergencies back to back that it's just a tough season of life. So again, if anybody finds themselves there, I'll do whatever I can individually to try to help you guys out too. So outside of that, any questions or comments?
Thank you for answering our questions, because that was a lot of questions and good information.
Yeah, I'll do that anytime, Robin. I'll make up any answer I have to try to answer it. No, I promise you that. My clients know that if I don't know an answer, I'll definitely say, hey, I don't know it, but I will find out the answer for you.
Brittany said, yeah, thank you as well.
Oh.
Robin, do you know when our next meeting is? If I need to put that in the chat.
I do not. We need
Okay.
to decide between you two.
Okay.
And then we can let everybody know.
Okay, that sounds good. I just didn't want to miss announcing that if we knew.
So like if the two of you want to stay on here after everybody else goes off, we can maybe come up with a date.
Okay,
Okay.
I can do that.
All right, gang. Well, we'll let everybody else get on with their evening. And man, I appreciate y'all's time.
Yeah, thank you all very much. You're welcome to sign off if you're finished or ask another question if you're not.
You might want to stop the
Yes.
record button. There you go.
I was just making sure nobody else had a question, but I'm
Oh,
going to
yeah.
stop the recording now once I find it. Yeah.